I'd like to introduce our lunchtime keynote speaker, Jeff Hawkins. He's an engineer, serial entrepreneur, scientist, inventor, and author. His lifelong interest in neuroscience and theories of the neocortex has driven his passion for building a technology based on neocortical theory. Previously, he has founded 2 mobile computing companies, Palm and Handspring, and is the architect of many computing products, such as the Palm Pilot and the Trio smartphone. In 2002, he founded the Redwood Neuroscience Institute, which is currently located at UC Berkeley. In 2004, he also authored the book On Intelligence, which describes progress on understanding the neocortex. We invited Jeff here today because not only is he an inventor and an entrepreneur and scientist, but he's an immigrant ally and advocate on behalf of local immigrants to our community, as well as Greater California. So please welcome Jeff Hawkins.
Yeah, I'm going to grab this mic here. Is this mic working? Can you all hear me? Great. Well, thanks for having me here today. I actually work right around the corner from here, so I just walked over 2 seconds ago. And when I was originally invited here to speak by Jasmine and Leslie Dorson from the Grow Foundation, I said, I don't think I'd be a very good speaker. I said, I don't really know the issues of the immigrant community, and I don't know the laws and the challenges of San Mateo County. And they said they wanted a perspective from someone in the business community. And I said, well, I can give one person's perspective on immigration issues. And so they said, great, that's what we want. So that's what I'm going to do. My talk is really, whoops, wrong button. I got to press the left button to go forward. There we go. My talk is very short, about 15 minutes. I'm going to talk about 3 topics. I'm going to tell you briefly how I got interested in immigration issues. Second, I'm going to tell you just a teeny bit about what we do as a business. It's not a sales pitch. It's sort of set up the last part of my talk, which is about how immigration affects our mission and what we try to do here in our business in Redwood City. So let me start with how I got interested in immigration issues. Oops, can I go back, please? Thank you. These are 2 young girls. This picture was taken about 12 years ago on my back porch. Kate on the right is one of my daughters, and Anna on the left is one of her friends, a great friend, and they spend a lot of time together. Here they're both enjoying reading Harry Potter, wearing Harry Potter glasses. Now, they're both brilliant young kids. They are both very motivated, but there was a big difference. Kate grew up with a family with 2 parents, lots of privileges, grew up right here in Redwood City, access to good education, health care, and so on. Anna was born in a very rural part of southern Mexico. Her father died when she was very young. He was a farm laborer, and he died in a machinery accident on the farm. Raised by a single mother, her mother decided to take her children to the United States across the border illegally. The first time they attempted to do that, they were caught. Anna was separated from her family. She had a gun held to her head. She was abandoned in a city she didn't know of in Mexico. She slept on the street for several days. Eventually reunited with her family again, and they, multiple ties, eventually came across the border through the desert into California, and she ended up in right here in Redwood City. And she ended up going to high school with my daughter. Now, it was through Anna I became aware of the issues that dreamers faced. And so I became aware that there were many, many thousands and tens of thousands of kids like her who were very nice, really great kids who were brought up in the United States and were doing extremely well in school, but didn't have access to pretty much anything. Anna eventually went to UC Berkeley, and I became aware there's thousands, tens of thousands of students in every 4-year college in this country who were undocumented students. And the biggest issue they faced, besides all the other challenges they had to overcome, was they couldn't get work. They couldn't work anywhere legally. And so I started, I thought this was a great injustice. We were basically penalizing children for whatever transgression their parents had done. And so these kids came here at a young age. They didn't really do anything wrong, and yet they were being punished and essentially banished from society. And I thought this was a terrible thing. So I started supporting Dreamers. I'll tell you about it in a second, but just to let you know how Anna ended up, Anna applied for an asylum visa eventually due to her sexual orientation, and she became here legally. This is a picture of Anna now. Anna transgender. He's now Julian, and he's a successful lawyer in Boston, contributing back to society. I became a big fan. I started supporting an organization called E4FC. They're in San Francisco. Stands for Educators for Fair Consideration, basically supporting undocumented college students in California. They do great work. I've also mentored and advised numerous individual students in various universities around the country, and I've also been involved in supporting the UC Berkeley undocumented student program. So that's how I got interested in immigration issues. Of course, today we have DACA, which is a partial remedy for many of these kids, not all of them. So there's still more work to be done there, and of course, DACA is not permanent, and it's at risk even in this next election. So it's really hard to imagine what it's like to live under those conditions. So let me just briefly tell you about what we do around the corner from here. I run a company called Numenta, and it's a part research institute, it's a part business. It's a little bit of both. It's structured as a for-profit. And what we're doing is essentially reverse engineering the brain. So here's a model of a brain, and I won't go into any details, don't worry. But about 75% of the volume of the brain is the neocortex. It's the big wrinkly thing on top. And all mammals have one. And ours is particularly big. It's about the size of this dinner napkin. So if you could take your neocortex out of your body, your brain, and iron it flat, it would be about this thick and about this big an area. And this is what makes us intelligent. Everything you ever do, my neocortex is speaking, yours is listening. It's this sheet of cells, which is what makes humans human, and all the intelligent things we do. And we're figuring out how this works. Many people, including myself, think this is one of the most important scientific problems of all time. And it has tremendous ramifications for the future of humanity, understanding how these things work and building machines that work on these principles. So we're on a real mission here to try to do something that's very challenging and difficult to do, and yet has tremendous impact, will have tremendous impact on the entire planet going forward for basically indefinitely as long as we are in existence. So it's a pretty mission-driven business. On any particular day, when I was invited to come and give this talk, I decided that what I would do is I would take a snapshot of Numenta at that moment in time and use that to frame a discussion about immigration from my perspective. So here's that snapshot. These are all the people in July, a few have changed since then, who had an office or desk somewhere in our office around the corner here. So on any particular day, you'd come in and see one of these people. There's 24 of them here. It's a pretty small group. And I decided to break them down into different sort of immigration statuses and to give you a flavor for what my business is like from an immigration point of view. So let's start with, why didn't it work? Okay, there we go. These are people who are foreign-born and on temporary visas. So these are actually turned out to be interns because that's the only way you can hire people with temporary visas. We have Zuha, who's from Pakistan. She has her PhD from the University of Pittsburgh. She here is a student visa. Victor, who just got his PhD from the University of Edinburgh. He's originally from Mexico. He's here on a NAFTA visa. And Nathaniel, who's from France, and he's studying at Stanford, getting his master's degree. So they all work here during the summer and into the fall. The next up, we have people who are foreign-born and here on an H-1B visa. So we've arranged for those visas. We have Yue, who's from China. He got his PhD at the University of Maryland. And we have Marion from France, who's got her master's from Georgia Tech. She's from a teeny, teeny little town in some rural part of France. She's like the only person who's ever left there for anything. Next up, we have people who are foreign-born but are now U.S. citizens, and we have 3 of our people who are like that. Luiz is from Brazil, and he studied in Israel, the Technion University. Vitali, his family emigrated from Russia, and he went to UC Berkeley. And Subotai, our VP of Research, is born in Calcutta, India, and he has his PhD from the University of Illinois. Next up, we have I asked them how many people were U.S. born but the first generation, that their parents immigrated. And we only have one. That was interesting. I didn't realize that. This is Christine. She was born in San Francisco. Her parents were born in China. And of course, then we have everyone else, who are U.S. born and parents are U.S. born, and I didn't distinguish any further back than that. Now, if you might be curious, down in the lower right-hand corner, you see Taylor, but next to Taylor is Matt. Matt used to live in Redwood City, or work in Redwood City, and a year ago, he basically decided he couldn't afford to raise his family here on a single salary. So they moved south, several hours south down to Paso Robles, but Matt still shows up every day on this little robot. And it's called the Double. And so every day I talk to Matt, and he's at home working, and he can drive his robot around the office. It's pretty cool. So he still has a desk, therefore he qualified for being on this list. It works really, really well. Now, it was also interesting. I asked him how many people were born and raised in the Bay Area, and there's only two. Andrew and Christine were the only two people who actually came from this area or raised in this area. So now we can summarize here. We can say, okay, of the 24 people, 8 out of those 24 were born outside of the USA. And 22 out of 24 were born outside of California. Okay, so there's the setup. So what do I take away from this? First of all, I would view all 22 of those people as, in some sense, migrants. They all came here from someplace else. And normally when I think about the world, when I think about my work, I don't really make a distinction between these two groups. Our work, and I'm going to admit, our work is very unusual, and I don't know how much this applies to other businesses, but our work is something that's a very difficult thing to do. It's a rare group of people who can do it, and they come from all over. And many of them come just because they want to work on what we do, reverse engineering the brain. But anyway, to me, my potential set of people that might work on this task is around the world. And they come from all over the place. And if, on one perspective, I could say to myself, well, what difference does it matter if they came from Mexico or they came from Texas? Or if they came from India or they came from North Carolina? Why does that matter to me? And I kind of have, and so, if we can, if we want to hire someone, we try to make it work. Can't always do that, but if I have to go through the process of doing an H-1B visa, we do that. We don't do that to pay people lower salaries or anything like that. It's just that we like to, these people, we need them, and they're going to work for us, and we try to make it work. We have some people who actually kind of work with us very closely overseas, but we can't hire them, and so we do that remotely, too. They're just sort of advocates and friends and so on. So I think this perspective is kind of unique to Silicon Valley. And if I think about immigration, there's like two totally different ends of a spectrum. I paint these two different ends of a spectrum. On one end, you can ask, why are there borders at all? Who cares? If someone wants to come and work someplace and they can get there, why not let them do that? On the other hand, and by the way, in Silicon Valley, we tend to be more on this end of the line because I'll explain why in a second. The other extreme event is that, unfortunately, humans have a history of doing bad things to each other. And they have a history of invading one another, imposing their will on other people, or killing each other, and genocide, and so on. And when that happens, we want to have borders, we want to have walls, we want to prevent those things from occurring. And we don't live in an ideal world where you can ignore all of that all the time. But here in Silicon Valley, it's kind of interesting. We feel very secure. I feel no threats. I've never felt a threat in my life. I never felt at risk in my life. I never felt that. I don't come from a wealthy family, but I never felt at risk financially. And I think there's a security, and we feel that more here. We attract great talent from around the world here. You notice every one of my employees has at least a 4-year degree, every one. And many of them have PhDs. So this is sort of a rarefied world, but here in Silicon Valley and San Mateo County, we can sort of take that approach more like, hey, it's an open world. Let's work openly. Let's not worry about these borders too much. And if people come here, great, we'll make it work. We'll find apartments for them while they're here temporarily. We give them bicycles to if they need transportation. We give muni passes and so on, and trying to get people from anywhere who want to work here to help them work here. But I realize that's not something that can apply everywhere. And but that's our perspective here. So that's my view on immigration, how it impacts my work. I view the workforce that I can pull from as universal across the globe, and we try to pick the best talent from everywhere, and we end up with a fairly diverse workforce. I think there's also benefits in that diversity, and it's giving different people's perspectives, and we enjoy it. It makes our life very easy. or enjoyable, I should say. So that's I've run really big businesses too. Some of my previous companies were quite large, and we had a similar attitude there, but of course it was a little bit less. We had a more diverse workforce in terms of salaries and job types. Here it's a very kind of a very sort of high-end type of positions we have here at Numenta. But the same attitude is applied. We've always viewed as immigration as just an issue. It's not really something that we deal with, other than the fact that if we have to get an H-1B visa or help someone out do something legally, we do that. It's just a cost of doing business. But it's been a very sort of global perspective for my entire career, and clearly this is true right now as well. All right, so actually that's the end of my prepared comments. And so thank you. And I'm told people can ask questions, so we have time for asking questions, and I'd love to answer any kind of questions you have about anything. Someone must have a question, otherwise, yes, down here in the front. I'll repeat the question if you want, or do you want to use a microphone?
First of all, thank you for being here, much appreciated. Quick question, how did you get involved with E4FC?
How did I get involved with E4FC? Well, when I learned about dreamer problems, the problems that dreamers face, I started asking around, calling around, and digging into it. And I ended up speaking to a couple people who were at Berkeley, a couple of dreamers at Berkeley, and I asked them where they're getting support from, and a couple of them mentioned E4FC. So then I contacted E4FC, Kathy Ginn, who runs that organization, and I interviewed her, and I said, okay, I'm on board. So I started supporting him at that point. And more than just financially, I get involved in various ways, helping him out. And there's some other organizations, too, that I've supported, but they are really, like the UC Center and some other university centers, but they're really focused on this problem, and they take a really broad view of it. There's a question in the back there.
No papers, no dreamer, because she doesn't fall within the regulations of DACA. So what is that organization doing for not just the DACA kids, but for these kids who are getting an education and have no prospects at the end of that?
It isn't, that organization, by the way, we got involved long before there was DACA, all right? We worked hard to get DACA passed. I worked hard to get DACA passed. I met with legislators and made phone calls, and so it's not a DACA organization. All I mentioned is DACA is a partial remedy for some people. So the goal, E4FC and others are still supporting undocumented students. What we found, the first thing they need is they need someone to talk to. We found that there were students at all major universities, in particular Berkeley, who just, they weren't out. Often they couldn't even afford to get back home because they couldn't afford to live on campus, so they were sleeping in the buildings on campus. They needed some place to go. That's the first thing they need. Someone they can talk to about their issues. Can I do this? Can I not do that? The second thing they need is they can really benefit from legal advice. There's a lot of remedies that are available to undocumented college students outside of DACA. I mentioned Anna. Anna basically got through on an asylum application. Thank you, but the laws are very complicated. So setting up ways for pro bono work and getting good pro bono work is tricky. So they put a whole series of vetting processes in place, and still today, if you go to E4FC's website, there's ways of getting involved in that, putting your name in, getting counsel, and so on. Those are the big issues. And just letting people know what are their options, what possibilities do they have, what are their risks. And that, just knowing that, often we found something along the lines of 30% of the people who thought they had no remedy ended up with some remedy. That still leaves a lot of people sort of out in the lurch. But even there are things they can do. There are other people who figured out how to, whether it's legal or not, we don't know, but there's kids who started LLC organizations, and they consult, and they do that, and that's a potentially legal process. So the trick is to get advice and get in there and learn from what's available. And that is still ongoing, and there's a lot of people who still need that. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, my question is, how do you integrate and what are the unique issues that you are addressing for people who come to United States as a high-skilled, on
as a what?
H was high-skilled engineers and all those amazing specialists that you are bringing? What are the unique issues you are trying to address as a business?
Yeah, what are the unique issues we address? You know, we have it relatively easy. The people that we deal with come to us are generally highly educated. They've already somehow gotten themselves into a top school somewhere in the United States, or they're already working here under some condition. They generally do not have money problems. They generally are, you know, they got their act together. And so the issues we deal with are primarily legal ones. You know, taken care of. If we're trying to apply for an H-1B visa or a green card, we help them with that. We hire lawyers for that. We'll pay for certain fees. We give them flexibility in time if they have to travel someplace to take care of these issues. We can do that. They might have to go back home to their country of origin and take some issues there. We give them time off to do that. You know, we just try to make it easy. We don't deal with issues, and even housing. We'll like say, okay, if you need a place to stay, we'll basically find someone who's got an apartment or a room, and set them up for that. But we're not dealing typically with families coming with lots of issues. They're generally young people or single or engaged or a couple, and that you know, it's not really. We don't deal with a lot of issues I imagine the county would deal with. Typically, we don't have to deal with issues with schools or, you know, integration into the community. They all speak, you know, good English, and they know their wherewithal is pretty high. So it's mostly legal issues, and just flexibility are the things we can give them, and support in various ways like that. Again, I'm not saying I'm representing most of businesses. I'm not saying I'm representing most of immigrants. This is one person's perspective. I realize that it's a much more complicated world out there for many people. Any other questions? We got time for a couple more.
Hi there. Thank you for coming today and speaking. I'm just curious, from your perspective, how do we engage more tech companies to be involved in immigration issues, whether it's DACA or something else, or pushing for comprehensive immigration reform, moving beyond just high-skilled workers, but the immigrants that are really part of our communities here and really make this community thrive?
So is your question, how do you get more people becoming advocates for these issues, people like me?
Yes.
First of all, you know, my casual understanding of other people like me, I know a few, most of them are generally sensitive to this issue. Most of them, well, I should say sensitive. If you explain the issue these people, like Dreamers have, they'll be very sympathetic to their cause. They're also very sympathetic for the general idea of how Silicon Valley is a real melting pot. You know, we can see it, just walk down the street and you see people from every part of the world. So this idea that immigration is good and that this furthers our communities is generally accepted. I don't think most people understand the hardships. People like me don't understand the hardships a lot of immigrants face. And they certainly don't understand the hardships that the non-high-skilled tech workers face. I see that a lot because if a family comes here and there's a kid who really excels in high school and is doing fantastic in college, there's usually a couple other siblings at home who are not doing that well. And the parents are often suffering, or there's often a single parent who's raising the family, or they're doing so on a very, very low income. And you don't necessarily see that. My point is I think you'd find a ready audience and people like myself if they just became aware of the issues and even just asked to participate. I don't know how to do that. I told you my story, but I don't think it would be that hard. Now, maybe some people here would disagree with me who've tried that. I don't know. But, you know, I think I've talked to some other well-known entrepreneurs in the Valley, and they said, oh, yeah, that's an important issue. I'm glad you're working on that. Let me know how I can support it or something like that. So it's not like I run into a lot of opposition to this. Sometimes you run into a little bit of opposition where people thinking if you're supporting Dreamers, you're just for global amnesty. And I try to avoid that conversation. I say, look, we're not talking about that now. I don't know the right answer to that question, but how can you argue that these kids should be banished like this. And that message resonates with people. And just don't throw it into some sort of amnesty talk or something like that. So I answer your questions. I don't know how to engage people like me. I think you can. I think there'll be a very receptive audience. I think it's just a matter of reaching out to them somehow. Even just PR or whatever, just saying we need support for the following things. One thing that we did, I will mention it, and then I'm out of time. My wife and I were doing just other philanthropy issues here, and I said, well, I wanted to do something for the local school district. And so in Redwood City, this is a number of years ago, so I went to the head of the K through 6 school district. I think it was the K through 6, or was it? Yeah, the K through 6 school district. And I said, what can we do for the schools? And he said, you know what? What we really need is we have a lot of immigrant families, and they need after-school care. That's what we need. And so it wasn't a schooling issue, it was a care issue. And so I had asked that question, that's the answer I got back. We ended up funding the police athletic league building that's over in Fairfield area. What's that? I can't hear the words being said out there, but my wife and I were sort of the founding donors to that building because we thought that was a nice way of, we didn't start out saying we're going to help immigrant families, how we're going to help the school district. So even that was another indirect way of sort of helping immigrants, and made me a little bit sensitive to that issue as well. Okay, I'm out of time, so I'm supposed to get off the podium. Thank you very much. Thank you for all you do. The work you do is great, and I appreciate it very much.
Buenas tardes. Oh, come on, folks, you can do better than that. Buenas tardes. There we go. Before we get started, everybody stand up for a minute. Just stand up for 1 minute. Let's get that chicken down on the bottom of that stomach, and give the person next to you a high five for being here. Say, hey, thanks for coming. Come on, high five for somebody. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. All right, let's have a seat, folks. Fantastic. My name is Andres Connell. I'm the executive director of a local nonprofit called Nuestra Casa, and it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator for our next panel. So as we encourage government to support all communities, our next session will focus on how business, governments, and other stakeholders can work together to better meet the needs of immigrants. Now, if you look at your agenda, you see that Dan Torres' name is on the agenda. Unfortunately, there was a scheduling conflict. He was not able to join us. But no fear, we upgraded. We got someone here who's going to come out of the water and just make us forget about Dan. So I'm very proud to introduce our moderator for the next panel. Her name is Marcela Ruiz, and she is the Chief of Immigration and Civil Rights Branch at the Welfare to Work Division at the California Department of Social Services. Marcela served as Deputy Director at California Rural Legal Assistance, where she held several positions, including Regional Director, Directing Attorney, Staff Attorney, and she was also a Berkeley Law Foundation Fellow. Marcela worked as a union organizer and served as Director of Organizing at the New York Hotel Trades Council. She co-founded Casa Mexico in New York City and was active in the Green Grocer campaign. She earned her JD from Bolt Hall School of Law at UC Berkeley, and has a BA from Columbia College. So please put your hands together for Stockton's own Marcela Diaz.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So Dan Torres sends his regrets. If it's any consolation, he and I look almost identical. So I would say that listening to the panels today, one of the themes that's emerging is how multifaceted immigrant integration is, which I think just leads to a need to ensure that there are partnerships across different sectors, across government, nonprofits, and private industry. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing a collaboration across nonprofits and private industry. And I am sitting here with two incredible women. And I read their bios last night. I was so blown away. I want to share this with you, and I'm going to read them because they deserve to be recognized for all of their experience that they bring to the conversation. Hamali Gajaria is an assistant vice president of marketing for TechCU, Technology, it's a credit union. She leads strategy and execution, helping to drive brand awareness, customer acquisition, retention, and engagement for various banking products and services, all while collaborating with business partners on rebranding initiatives. She has been involved in the creation and implementation of various marketing programs, promoting offerings like free credit scores and monitoring services, and global membership for those who are new to the country and to the workforce, and also mobile banking, educational seminars, and how-to videos. Previously, she worked at Intuit and Highlights for Children, managing both quantitative and qualitative research projects geared toward gathering and applying valuable customer insight. Monisha Merchant is the San Jose Bay Area site coordinator of the New American Workforce. She works with human resources leaders and companies to offer citizenship application resources to their employees. Previously, she worked for U.S. Senator Michael Bennet on business, economic development, technology, and immigration policy. She has worked as a product manager for Level 3 Communications, a management consultant for Booz Allen Hamilton, and an engineer for Lucent Technologies. She has managed projects in, Indonesia, Brazil, Ghana, Nigeria, Germany, Japan, and I'm not done yet, China, and Nicaragua. She served as a regent on the board of the University of Colorado, and she studied electrical engineering and political science at MIT and earned her MBA from Yale School of Management. Please put your hands together for our panelists. So I want to start with Monisha. Can you tell us a little bit about the New Americans Workforce and how you work with companies and employers?
Great. So the New American Workforce, our previous speaker during lunch, I think, segued in this to really well. One of our entry points, right, for immigrant integration is for our employers. And we are part of the New Americans campaign, and we are focused on working with employers to help their employees who are legal permanent residents, who have their green cards, become U.S. citizens. A couple of our partners are here, Gabriela and Christian from the Building Skills Partnership, and they've been great partners with us in the Bay Area. We partner with employers. We come in and provide information about the citizenship process, and then through our partnership with Siren and International Rescue Committee here in the Bay Area, we work one-on-one with each of the employees who are interested in applying for citizenship. We provide a very low-cost legal assistance from the moment that they start applying up through the oath ceremony, and we're their partner throughout. And Hamali is one of our, through the TechCU, is one of our great employers in the area who have been a great business partner for this program.
Hamali, can you tell us a little bit about why TechCU opted to utilize this partnership?
Sure. So TechCU has been in the Bay Area for over 55 years. They serve the Bay Area community. We have about 75,000 members here. And as all of us have been here, we've all come from someplace. So we all recognize the need for being inviting in this particular community. We do offer programs for global members. When folks first join or come here, they're looking for that transition. They're looking to make this place their home. They need some guidance, and we're here to help them. They're looking to establish themselves economically and socially, and just being part of the credit union. They're looking for that first credit card, the auto loan, the mortgage loan, but most of all, they don't know anything about how it is to be here when it comes to financially, that there is something called as a credit score, and what does that mean? So we educate our members free of cost and give them the free power to understand what that is. Give them some education on what does a credit score component mean? What are the categories associated with that? We also let them know what they're doing really well and what there might be gaps or opportunities associated with that credit score. And now, when they're ready to buy that big ticket item that they're thinking about or a credit card, they can utilize this information because knowledge is power. If you know where you are and where you need to go and how to go about doing it, then you do have the power to do a few things that you can do that. So this was a very natural transition for us to say, how can we help communities while they uplift themselves for themselves from an economic perspective, they also have the need from the immigration standpoint. This is what we heard from our members, and we wanted to bring this service to all of these 75,000 members at the Bay Area community.
And this is a question for both of you. Himali, I'm wondering if you can talk about how this partnership has impacted your relationship with your employees and with the community at large. And maybe, Monisha, you can talk about what you see with other private businesses that you work with and how this impacts their relationship with their employees.
Sure. I think we are fortunate to have this relationship in two directions. We do work with other companies in the Bay Area, and then their employees benefit from some of the services that we have. So we have relationship with over 500 companies within the Bay Area. And we then, when we're talking to their HR department, we're talking to them about this service that is associated with us, but we do at TechCU that they can bring to their own companies in their own facility, which makes it easy for them to utilize the service. We also have the 75,000 members that we have their ears, and we want to make sure that they have the information to make those decisions for them. We have branches at different places in the community, so it's not too hard for them to come to that location for a totally free seminar for an hour, learn basic information about eligibility, about requirements, about cost, so that they can make the decision of what they need to do to move forward.
So talent is really at a premium in the Bay Area, and so this is another an employee benefit that a company can give that actually is no cost to the company. And what we've heard as feedback from the employers in the area is that they appreciate the ability to connect with their employees in a different way. And many of the employers allow their employees who participate in the program to also bring their family members. And so it is a benefit that extends beyond the employee and just the employer. Like, for example, we had an application session where the gentleman came in and it'll be 6 total people in the family applying for citizenship, and he can look to his employer as bringing this service to him, and that's something connected through the entire family.
And Himali, I'm wondering if you can talk about some of the feedback you've received to this program from the community or from your employees.
Sure. We've been very fortunate to have seminars associated with citizenship. There is an upcoming seminar coming out at our San Jose location on November 9th. So if any of you are interested, you're more than welcome to join or spread the word. So it's techcu.com/seminar, enroll, and come join. If there's anybody who has a need, please pass that along. We've done these seminars a number of times over a period of 3 years. A lot of people have had interest in this particular seminar. We offer other seminars too, but this definitely brings home something that's very personal to them. And therefore, everyone who comes to this particular seminar and has listening to what this information is all about half of them stay after the seminar because they have a very personal question pertaining to them. And there's this nice long line and queue going on right after the seminar to be able to answer that personal question. And for me, this became all the more personal having come all the way from a different country, having gone through that. And I was fortunate enough last year to be able to apply for a green card for my own parents. And they were able to help me guide through that particular process. And so they've also helped our members who are looking to have a green card for the family member have a seminar associated to that. So as a credit union where service is part of our DNA, we're always looking at the needs of our members and trying to address and see how we can help them. As we said, knowledge is power, and all we want to do is spread the word.
And Monisha, I'm hoping you can share with us why, from the new American workforce viewpoint, this partnership with private industry is so important, and what support you provide to employers who are thinking about developing this sort of strategy.
Great. As you've heard throughout the day, and many of you know in your own day-to-day work, every type of touch point you can have to welcome people to this country, the employers are just, it's a no-brainer to be able to come to it. The history is that the program is based on the work of the leaders of Bethlehem Steel, the company in the early 1900s who built the Golden Gate Bridge, and the resources that he was able to bring. When you notice that over 50% of his workforce didn't have the access to information, language, and citizenship. And so we're building on a history of successful companies that have been able to bring those services to their employees and help their employees become really integrated in the community. And this is an audience that I don't have to pitch the benefits of citizenship, but as you can appreciate, trying to work with businesses and employers to really understand that it's a way for them to connect with a broader part of their workforce. Just at a company I was at on Monday, the human resource director, that was her response at the end of the day, was that she was able to now connect with employees across the company in a new fashion that she hadn't had that opportunity to do before.
So clearly this provides an innovative and very creative way of ensuring that there's immigrant integration, not just broadly in society and through government action, but through collaboration with private industry. We wanted to make sure to leave time for questions, so I'm actually going to open it up to anybody who has a question of these wonderful women.
Yes, we do. Everywhere between San Jose, everywhere from, the question was, do we work in San Mateo County? Our organization that is based in DC, and I'm the person who represents this region, and we work from San Jose to San Francisco out through the East Bay. And we work with all types of employers, so primarily private sector companies, but we've worked with universities, community colleges, and our program is in 8 cities across the country. We work with the city of Los Angeles for their employees. We work with the city of New York for their employees. And another example is the city of Miami Beach now has an annual citizenship ceremony for their employees that are going through the process. And so we're open to working with all types of employers to bring these resources to your employees.
Any other questions? I'll just add that in terms of the collaboration that exists, last year for the first time in a while, the state of California developed funding for nonprofits to provide naturalization services, and some of the organizations that New American Workforce works with are funded through the state, through grants for nonprofits. So I think that's where you see the symbiosis, the organizations, all of us coming together to work toward the broader goal of immigrant integration.
Thank you.
Closing thoughts?
If you, both Hamali and I would be here afterwards, so if you have any other questions, we'd be happy to give you some information. And I have 2 other folks who can give some testimonial about our services, Gabriela and Christian. So if you have any other questions, you can ask them. Put them on the spot.
Thank you, and again, a round of applause for our panelists.
All right, well, I hope that you guys remembered everything that was presented today, a lot of good information, new best practices, new experiences. So we're going to get into our final breakout session. I know it's been a long day, and this is the very end, but this is the most crucial so that we as a community can start dialoguing and discussing about some key issues that we've presented today. As some of you may or may not be aware, San Mateo County has a shared Vision 2025. It reflects the goals and priorities expressed by the community during a series of public meetings and surveys. The 5 community outcomes are as follows. Healthy communities, our neighborhoods are safe and provide residents with access to quality healthcare and seamless services. Prosperous community, our economic strategy fosters innovation in all sectors, creates jobs, and builds community and educational opportunities for all residents. Livable communities, our growth occurs near transit and promotes affordable, livable, connected communities. Environmentally conscious communities, our natural resources are preserved through environmental stewardship, reducing our carbon emissions, and using energy, water, and land more efficiently. And lastly, collaborative community. Our leaders forge partnerships, promote regional solutions with informed and engaged residents, and approach issues with fiscal accountability and concern for future impacts. So with the County Shared Vision 2025 in mind, we'd like you to share in your groups the previous challenge you outlined on the worksheet before that you wish to discuss further, and develop new strategies to address, collaborate on, or further solve those challenges. So think about the challenges you previously talked about and identify which are priorities to you and to our community as a whole. And we'd like for you to look back on some of the examples and experiences and tools you've heard today. We'd like to hear what are some of the action items you'd like to work on in your own respective roles in partnering with others and with new projects with the county. Every table will have a volunteer that will be arriving soon with an easel and some pens so that they can facilitate the flow of your dialogue. Based on your table's discussion, someone from your table will share with the group at large one priority action and the action item that will go along with it upon leaving today. You'll have about 40 minutes in your group. So if you're at a small table with 1, 2, 3 people, please connect with another table to have a fuller discussion and dialogue. So feel free to move around now, and the volunteers will start heading to the tables with their easels. Thank you.